So friends, now let us discuss the various impacts of the foreign direct investment. The foreign direct investment can have both the positive impacts as well as the negative impacts, right? So we will discuss both in detail. It has a lot of advantages. At the same time, there are various threats, security threats, financial threats, threats to the inclusive growth which are happening because of the FDI. So first let us see what are the positive impacts. So as we have already seen that the FDI brings capital, it brings the transfer of technology, and it also brings the management skills. So when we have good capital, we have the technology, we have the management skills, then the competitiveness of our domestic industries is enhanced. And when the competitiveness of the domestic company is enhanced, then the cost of the product is decreased, the quality of the product is increased, and ultimately the exports are increased. When the exports are increased, then the trade surplus is there, and when trade surplus is there, then automatically the current account deficit is decreased and balance of payment is also under control. So it has a very good impact over the overall economy of India, right? Secondly, when FDI is there, then more research and development happens because the foreign companies are investing a lot of money into the innovation. And in India now we have the new IPR policy 2016. After this policy, this innovation is converted into the intellectual property of India. So that also adds to the advantage. Then we are facing low savings and investment rates at present. Then savings and investment rate, which used to be 36%, 37% of GDP in the last 4-5 years, which they have come down to approximately 32%. And because of this decline in the domestic savings and investment rate, we are having insufficient resources to spend on the sectors like infrastructure. So when FDI is coming, then definitely we can ensure that our investment into the infrastructure, investment into the manufacturing sector is not hampered. So we are able to compensate the low savings and investment rates in India. Then the good manpower will also not go abroad, because when the foreign companies are coming into India, we can establish better work culture. There is a professionalism, better corporate governance. So the people who look outside India for the opportunities, they don't need to go there. Then our credit rating is also enhanced. So India has been one of the front runner in the FDI attraction. It enhances the overall image of the country, because any country can attract the FDI only if it is having the good factors like the market, like the labor force, like the ease of doing business, and the potential. So having more FDI basically means that economy is doing good, or economy is having the potential. So that attracts the foreign investors, that attracts the other players into the country. And not only the image is enhanced, the impact is upon the cost of finances also. The interest cost of finance is reduced. So whenever any money is borrowed from outside India in the form of external commercial borrowing, the interest cost of that funding is also reduced for the domestic corporate companies. Then ancillary agglomeration happens. The point is that when big industries are established, they required some raw material, some outsourcing services from the small companies. So this increases the job and the work opportunities for the micro, small and medium companies. And finally, the foreign exchange reserves also increase, because we can see that in the recent time the foreign exchange reserves have been more than $400 billions. So this foreign exchange reserve is an indicator of the strength of the economy, because we are no longer dependent upon the outside countries for our import payments. So we can import for a long period of time and we can pay in the hard currency. So this is also adding to the strength. So let us revise first. So it is increasing the competitiveness, which ultimately results into the exports. Intellectual property rights compensates the low savings and investment rates, control the brain drain, then increase the credit rating and provides more jobs and work opportunities for the small industries. And finally, improvement in the foreign exchange reserves. So all these are the benefits. However, FDI has its own gray areas. See, what is the problem with the FDI? See, we discussed in the previous session that in India, immediately at the time of independence, we were very hostile regarding the foreign investment because we have had the bad experience at the time of colonialism. One of the company, the East India Company, which only got the trading right, that company actually converted into the colonial country. So this created a lot of apprehensions, and these apprehensions are valid today also. Some of the experts believe that today the new imperialism is happening. The countries like the Western countries and other countries, they are investing into the developing countries through their MNCs, and which is nothing but a kind of controlling the economies of the developing countries. So that is a view of the few experts. So one is the neo-imperialism, and this neo-imperialism is actually leading to the dependency syndrome, that we are becoming dependent upon the outside countries for our infrastructure, for our manufacturing sector, for providing the jobs to our people. So this dependency syndrome is there, right? We are looking towards the other countries to get the funds to revive our economy, which is not a good thing in the long term. Then some experts believe that it is leading to the westernization. Westernization is not a bad thing. Westernization, earlier it meant the implementation of industrial revolution, then it meant the implementing the modern values. But westernization also means that we are degrading our Indian culture in terms of the dressing, the food habits, the domestic work culture of the companies. So this westernization, it is a good thing also, because at times it increases the professionalism if we see from the company management point of view. But at the same time, this westernization also it demolishes the family company structures which have been in existence in India for a long period of time. So these family company structures which are in existence in India, such structures have been working as the dominant structures which used to provide the jobs to the people, which have a good relationship with the government also, and which take care of the other responsibilities of the economy. But when the professional companies are coming, the professional companies are focusing more upon the profit making. So this profit making actually leads to the exploitation of the people also, the consumer, the employees, and at times the exploitation of the environmental resources also. So this westernization is not a good thing. Then over consumerism, this foreign direct investment, for example, into the e-commerce companies, the companies like Amazon, Flipkart, they are offering huge discounts on their products. And even if we don't want to buy any particular product, still we buy because it is available at cheap cost. So even if we don't require that particular product at all, but we are spending from the pocket, so it leads to the over consumerism. Over consumerism leads to the resource exploitation burden on the environment, which ultimately increases the ecological footprint, which leads to the global warming. So overall, this over consumerism is not a good thing. Then regional imbalances. Why the regional imbalances? Because if we see the FDI pattern, see there are few states like Maharashtra, Delhi NCR, Tamil Nadu. So these, or there is a couple of more states also. So these are the major states which are receiving the FDI, and other areas which actually require the FDI, for example Uttar Pradesh, Bihar, the Odisha, the West Bengal, they are not getting the FDI. So this leads to the further regional imbalances, because the Maharashtra, Delhi NCR, Tamil Nadu, they are already well developed. They don't need much of the investment. Investment is more required in the backward economic areas, the backward pockets of the country, and we are not releasing the FDI over there. Although not only regional imbalances but also sectoral imbalances, because we have seen that FDI is coming mostly into the service sector. It is hardly coming into the manufacturing sector. And service sector, it is a good thing that service sector is growing, it is having good growth rate, but at the same time it is not providing the sufficient job opportunities. So it leads to the jobless growth. It leads to the jobless growth because service sector has limitations as far as the provision of services, provision of jobs is concerned. Then land inflation is there. We can see there are many areas like if we talk about the Delhi NCR, we have Gurgaon, we have Ghaziabad, we have Noida, and similarly the suburban areas of the Bangalore. So all these areas are facing the land inflation because lots of foreign investment is coming over there and they are buying the property at the high prices. What is the bad impact of the land inflation is that the people, the middle class people who want to construct their house, who want to live in their own in that particular area, they can't afford to buy a house, they can't afford to have their own commercial property. So the point is that this land inflation actually eliminates the people who can't afford to buy the land at the high cost. Then in the agriculture sector, there are few MNCs which are monopolizing the market, especially into the seeds industry. So this monopolization is not good because in the agriculture sector the farmers are also already facing the problem of indebtedness. They already have the high input cost, and this indebtedness and high input cost which creates a vicious cycle of indebtedness. It is not a good thing because the farmers then go for the suicides, which is very, very terrible thing. Then taxation issues. Taxation issues we can see in the case of the Vodafone. So what happened in the Vodafone, that there was a transaction between the two companies which were located outside India, but the asset was located inside India. That is, asset means basically the company, and the Vodafone, they said that we are not supposed to pay any tax. However, the government said that you are supposed to pay the tax. The case was moving from the High Court to the Supreme Court, then government did some retrospective amendment. So all this mess up happened, and all this has actually degraded the goodwill of the country in the image of the foreign investors. The image is damaged because they say they can see that Indian government is mismanaging the tax laws. We don't have the clarity in the tax laws. So these kind of issues, they actually diminish our image in the world eyes. Then transfer pricing issues. So this transfer pricing happens so that the foreign companies can save the taxation from India. They sell the goods from India to the outside India at low price, so to show the low profits in India. And also when they import the goods from outside India to the India, they show at a high price so that they can claim more cost into India and they can pay less taxes. So this transfer pricing also creates the tax evasion issues. And then there are BIT issues. That is the meaning of BIT. BIT basically means bilateral investment treaties. So foreign companies are making investment into India, and they are expecting certain facilities, certain regulatory relaxations from the Indian government. And Indian government has signed bilateral investment treaty with the outside countries, so that we will provide your companies the home treatment. Just like we are treating our companies, we will treat your companies in the same way. But there are controversies surrounding that only. There are allegations over the Indian government that we are not providing them the same treatment at times. So this is also one of the controversy. So all these controversy, the Vodafone controversy, transfer pricing controversy, and the BIT controversy, these kind of controversies actually create the bad image of the Indian economy. And when we are going to claim the UNSC permanent membership, then these issues come up that India is not managing its laws in an appropriate way. And then security issues because we are saying that we will be importing the technology, right? At times this technology can actually hamper our security. If we employ this technology in the defense sector, then at times our classified categories of defense industries may be compromised. So that is a apprehension, may not necessarily be true, and we can employ different security safeguards to prevent that, but that is an apprehension. Then there are issues of round tripping. Round tripping means the income of India, especially the black income that is being sent outside India, and from outside India it is coming back to India as if this is a white money. So this round tripping actually evades the tax. It is the income of our people. Our the tax should be paid in the India itself, but this round tripping is actually evading the tax. So this also creates the security issues, because this round trip money can be diverted to the terrorism purpose, for the nationalism purpose, and for the other anti-national purposes also. And all these issues actually make us believe that we should focus on reviving our own domestic investment and saving rate, which we can do through financial inclusion. We can do through lowering the taxation rate so that people have more savings instead of paying the taxes to the government. Then we can also inculcate the habit of savings among the people through the different measures. So all these are the measures that we can implement. So I'm just giving the recap. In the negative, the neo-imperialism, which have different aspects like westernization, over-consumerism, and the dependency syndrome. Then we have regional imbalances and the sectoral imbalances. Regional imbalances where certain states are receiving more FDI and other states are being neglected. Service sector is being benefited and it is creating the jobless growth. Land inflation is there. Agriculture sector is facing the problem of MNC monopolization in the inputs. And then there are taxation issues, and finally security issues. So overall the perspectives can be neo-imperialism, imbalances, agriculture sector issues, taxation issues, and the security issues. These are the 5 major perspectives as far as the disadvantages or the threats of the FDI is concerned. Now we are going to discuss what are the important determinants of FDI, and these determinants we will discuss in the context of India. In India, why FDI is coming at a very high rate, why India has been a front runner in receiving the FDI. So if we talk about India, we have very good things. For example, we have huge population which can actually act as a market for the foreign companies. Then this huge population also provides huge labor, which can provide the labor skills at a low cost. Then we are also one of the very aspiring country. We are in the developing stage. So in the developing stage, we require a lot of investment for the infrastructure purpose, for the manufacturing sector. So that is also one of the reasons why India is attracting the FDI. Then Indian government is also coming up with various kind of reforms which attract the FDI. So let us discuss the issues in detail. So the first point is large market size. We are the second most populous nation and our market size is also big, especially the middle class, which is now earning more incomes. So this middle class is, its purchasing power is increased. Right? So because of this, the foreign companies have good market in India. So they want to establish their own factories into India so that they can utilize this big market. Then we have low cost advantage, because there are various reasons. First of all, we are a developing country and our raw material cost is comparatively low. The cost of different resources, and we are also having demographic advantage, because our population in the age bracket of 18 to 35 is very huge, right? So this demographic advantage results into the low cost labor, right? So this labor and the raw material both are cost, therefore we provide the low cost advantage. The companies can come into India, they can manufacture the goods into India, and they can export into other markets from India, right? So this is the second advantage. Then in India we have competitive knowledge based industry. So after 1991, it was the service sector which made a breakthrough, and the sector like IT sector, banking sector, telecom sector, right? And now these days retail sector. So all these sectors are attracting lots of FDI, and also the e-commerce sector. So knowledge-based industries as well as the service sector, they have huge potential to absorb FDI. Then our overall economic growth rates have been comparatively high in India. In fact, we have been the highest economic growth rate country in the world. Our growth rate has been between 7% to 8%. So it also attracts the FDI. Then we have been taking various measures for ease of doing business. EODB basically means ease of doing business. So our rank in the World Bank ease of doing business ranking is improved a lot. Now it is in the top 100. So this ease of doing business is coming from various efforts. For example, we conduct investor summits. Then we have now easy clearances regarding the environment, regarding the industrial permits, regarding various other points. Then our infrastructure investment opportunities are increasing. We can see that we are investing into smart cities. Then in the agriculture sector, irrigation sector, we are also investing into the areas like ports, inland waterways, metro. So all this provides the new avenues of investment, right? And then we have been bringing up various economic reforms in India. For example, FDI reforms of 2017, goods and services tax. So they are said to be the structural changes in the Indian economy, right? We are also coming up with various banking reforms. So all these factors attract the FDI into India. Let us have a quick recap. First is the large market size because of the large population. Second is the low cost advantage because of the low cost of raw material and the demographic dividend. Third is the competitive knowledge based industries, especially the IT, banking, etc. Then high growth rates, ease of doing business, infrastructure investment like smart cities, irrigation opportunities, then recent economic reforms. And apart from this, now we will discuss what are the various government initiatives in the recent times to attract the FDI. So now we will discuss the challenges in the FDI. Why? We are one of the front runner country in the FDI, but despite that, there are so many challenges, and we have so much potential, but we are not able to recognize that, we are not able to fulfill that potential as far as attraction of FDI is concerned. So I will be giving you certain points, the same points that I have already given in the determinants of FDI, that why India is attracting the FDI. For example, I said that FDI, this EODB, ease of doing business, is good in India. It has improved, but at the same time, the problem still remain. So it is improving in the last couple of years, but it does not mean that it has improved finally. The issues are yet to be resolved. We have yet to resolve many issues in the EODB, right? So don't worry, you can write the same points in the different perspectives. You can write the ease of doing business in the factor which is attracting FDI, as well as in the factor which is stopping FDI into India. However, what is required is that you give the different arguments at different places. You can use the same heading, but your argument, your evidence, your facts have to be different. That is how you can make a difference, right? So first is that our ease of doing business is still not up to mark. We can see many issues. For example, exit challenge, which was also called as Chakravyuh challenge, as per one of the Chakravyuh challenge, as per one of the economic survey, right? So this Chakravyuh challenge means that an investor, once it invests into Indian company, it is not easy for him to come back. It is not easy for him to close the company and uh, you know get back his investment. However, in this recent year, we have come up with this insolvency and bankruptcy code, which will definitely resolve this problem. But still, this insolvency and bankruptcy code is applicable only to the companies. It is still not applicable to other than company formats. For example, individuals, partnership firms. So this exit challenge is still an issue. Second is regulatory complexities. There are so many regulations required: the labor law, the tax law, the permit from the local government, the state government, the central government, the land laws, so many. So that is why we call that in India we have jungle of laws. We have jungle of laws. This prevents the companies doing their business smoothly, right? So friends, when you're writing your answer, please write down the keywords. Write down these innovative words: check review challenge, jungle of laws. This is a terminology of GS3. This is a terminology which is given by the government documents, economic survey, Niti Aayog, etc. So the point is that when you're writing the answer, don't write unnecessary language. Write only key points. See, you will always see that I always write the key points. And inside the key point, I write the arguments, I write the evidences, I write the examples, the facts. So you also need to write in the same fashion, right? Don't need to stretch your language so much. So if you write only this much of words, you can get best marks. And I know that it is not easy for you to write these words as it is, but you need to revise it maybe 5 times, 6 times, 8 times. And for that, we will be providing you the mind map. Rather, you yourself make the mind map. So all this is, I am teaching mostly through the mind map only. This is also a kind of mind map. Whenever you are attending the lecture, when you are watching the lecture, just write it down in your A4 sheet. Don't just sit and listen it carefully. No, you listen to it as well as write it down in the A4 sheet. Make this mind map in your notebook, and that is how you can revise faster at the time of examination. If you are able to recall out of these 6 points, if you are able to recall only 4 points, that is more than sufficient, because these points are relevant. You are not doing grass cutting. You are not writing irrelevant points. You are writing all the points with evidences, with the government document references, right? So the point is that all this content is more than sufficient. You don't need to go through more books. You don't need to go through more resources for the General Studies Paper 3. I will be providing you maximum possible things from my side. In fact, whatever I am providing to you, it is in itself, this is additional. This is extra. I am providing extra points, extra material to you, so that you don't need to go here and there, right? So now coming back to the discussion. So first is the check review challenge, second is the jungle of laws. Then our labor laws are very, very rigid. Mostly they are not favoring the employer, because we have already discussed that in India we brought socialism into labor laws much before the capitalism, right? So this rigid labor laws, this is also called as regulatory cholesterol. What is cholesterol? So cholesterol is an element which actually slows down the smooth flow of anything, right? So these rigid labor laws, they slow down the smooth flow of working. Then tax law issues, we have already discussed the Vodafone issue. Then the GST implementation has been very, very controversial. The GST is alleged to be implemented without adequate preparation. And Economic Survey 2018. So friends, in this fashion, you should give the reference of the government document. If you are taking the points from Economic Survey, write the Economic Survey 2018, 19 or whatsoever. If you are taking the reference from some Niti Aayog document, write that also. So the point is, you need to write the reference. That is how the examiner will come to know that you also understand that what the government is writing in its documents. So Economic Survey 2018, it has mentioned contract enforcement delays. That in India, our contract enforcement is not easy. If a company, if a contractor has actually not implemented the project in the desired manner, then the company which is facing the problem because of this damage, that company cannot enforce. It takes 10 years, 20 years, 30 years to get the issues resolved. It is not an easy task to complete the court formalities in India. So this is the point that Economic Survey 2018 has made. Then next point is that, see, we are having the resources from Mauritius, Singapore. They are the top source countries, but they are top source countries because they are tax havens. Some experts believe that our own people are routing money through those countries. So that is not the real FDI. The real FDI has to come from the countries like USA, Europe. They are the real countries which can provide long-term capital and a huge amount of capital. But we don't have the physical proximity with them. We don't have the cultural proximity with them. Our work culture does not meet to their standards. See, it is normal for us to be late in the office for 30 minutes, for 15 minutes. It does not matter much. But if you are working in the Europe, in the USA, then if you are late by 1 minute, that means a lot. You can't do your personal work in the office time. They are very, very ethical person, right? So the point is that our cultural proximity and the physical proximity also becomes one of the roadblock in the high amount of FDI. Then our infrastructure costs are high. We are working on the infrastructure through various projects, but at the same time, our infrastructure cost is high. We can see that our logistics cost is more than approximately 18%, right? Then there are various controversy regarding the BIT, DTAA, the white industries case, where it was alleged that India is not providing the motherly treatment to the foreign companies. Then we are facing the high competition from the low-cost neighboring countries. So I said that one of the determinant or one of the attractive factor into India is that we are having the cost advantage. But the problem is that the competition is coming from the low-cost countries. For example, Bangladesh, Vietnam, Philippines. So Bangladesh, Vietnam, Philippines, and Malaysia. These 3-4 countries, they are also providing low-cost raw material, low-cost labor. So FDI is also going to those countries. It is not just coming to India, it is also going to those countries, right? And finally, we have very, very few sources of FDI, right? The major countries like Japan, they are not yet a big source of FDI into India. So Japan is becoming one of the source for FDI into India, but our sources are not diversified. We need much more diversified sources of FDI, right? So these all are the challenges. So let us first recap. Poor ease of doing business ranking, then geographical and cultural proximity is not there, high infrastructural cost, DTA and BIT issues, low cost neighboring countries competition, and the very limited sources of FDI. So these are all the challenges. The various government initiatives to attract the FDI, right? Some of these we have already discussed in various aspects of FDI, but now I have made a detailed list of the government initiatives. So the first major initiative is the Consolidated FDI Policy of 2017. This consolidated policy, it has improved the sectors where approval route is allowed, and it has also increased the sectoral limits. For example, in the defense sector, up to 49% automatically automatic is allowed, and beyond 49% up to 100% on a case-to-case basis, depending upon the transfer of technology and state-of-art technology, it is allowed, right? So automatic approval as well as sector limit have been enhanced. The procedures are being simplified. For example, now we have common application for PAN number, Aadhaar, bank account, and DMAT. So not Aadhaar, sorry, PAN, bank, and DMAT. So it eases out the process of completing the formalities. Then we already discussed that RBI is coming up with voluntary retention routes to convert the FPI into the long term. Then HR Khan committee has given the recommendation that the private banks should may be allowed to invest on behalf of their clients who don't want to register with the SEBI in India. So all this is the direction directed towards the government easing out the process for the FDI and FPI. Then we are also having new currency swap agreements with the countries like Japan. These currency swap agreements, they allow us more amount of FDI. Then state level investor summits are happening in the states like Uttar Pradesh, Haryana, Tamil Nadu, etc. And many more states are coming up with state level investor summit. The benefit is that now states are getting into competition with each other, that who gets more FDI. So this incentivizes them to improve their infrastructure capabilities like electricity, land, and the local regulatory compliances. We are also opening up various macro sectors. For example, we have opened up the Startup India, startup sector. So this can be one of the major avenue, because we are having very good potentials in the startups, and we have also opened up the industry and the infrastructure. And finally, we are also coming up with various domestic economic reforms. For example, GST, for example, this EBIS, investor portal, Invest India portal, and so many things, right? So all these are the government initiatives. So let us first recap. Consolidated FDI policy of 2017, simplified procedures, currency swap agreements, state level investor summits, macro sectors have opened up, and the domestic economic reforms. Now we will discuss the final way forward. What should be the way forward? That is, what the government or what should be done as a policy matter, what are the steps that can be taken by the government. So first of all, I am giving you 5 seconds to think about the different suggestions that you want to make. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Okay. So see, first of all, don't just reverse the challenges or issues and convert it into suggestions. You have to bring some new points, then only you can score good marks. So let us see what new points we can discuss. First is the we can introduce this local content requirement. What is local content requirement? That if an FDI is being made into India and some manufacturing activity is happening because of that FDI, then there should be certain minimum percentage of content that should be imported from the local industries only. So that will actually nurture the local domestic industries, the local small industries. So this kind of local content requirement was implemented in the automobile industry, and because of this requirement only, we can see that in India we have the good automobile component industry, right? So there has been a lot of FDI into the automobile sector into India, and because of the local content requirement that we had in this sector, we can see that the component market could develop, and because of this content market, lot of investment into the small industries could be made by the domestic companies itself, and jobs could be created, the regional disparities could be minimized, and the industrial manufacturing activities in the domestic industries, they could flourish. So this is the first suggestion we can give, that this kind of local content requirement we can have in more sectors, and definitely that should be within the WTO standard, within the other regulatory requirement only. We are not saying that we should violate the other requirement. Secondly, see, what is the problem, that because of the FDI, there is a threat that our domestic industries, they can get unnecessary competition or unbearable competition, rather I would say. So the thing is that we should plan the FDI into those sectors where our traditional sectors don't get threatened, right? So for that, what we should do, we should invite the FDI into export oriented sectors. So those sectors where we want to do more and more exports, then we can invite the FDI into those areas which are not having sufficient capabilities, right? For example, renewable energy. So in the renewable energy, our domestic capabilities are limited. So we should invite the FDI. Then we should invite the FDI into those areas which are modern technological areas. For example, artificial intelligence, the Internet of Things, and other similar technologies. So these three areas, the modern technological areas, areas which don't have the capability, and the export oriented areas. If we invite the FDI into these three areas, then our traditional industries, our local industries, they will not having any conflict with the FDI, and we can actually complement their effort with the FDI effort. So this is what we can do secondly. Then we should discuss inorganic FDI. What is the meaning of inorganic FDI? Inorganic basically means the mergers and acquisition. Inorganic, for example, this Walmart invested into Flipkart into India. It just acquired a major stake in the Flipkart. So this kind of acquisition actually does not benefit much, because they are not developing the company from scratch. They are not investing their technology, their management processes. They are just investing the capital. So the FDI should be encouraged into those areas where the foreign investor wants to develop from scratch. For example, irrigation sector, right? So that kind of foreign direct investment would develop the multiplier positive effect into Indian economy, rather than just capitalizing on the work that has already been done by the Indian companies, right? So we should encourage the organic FDI rather than the inorganic FDI. And after these suggestions, you can conclude your answer with certain good points, that we should bring the third generation reforms. Still reforms in the labor law reforms, in the land reform, in the banking reform. So all these reforms are still pending. We have taken a lot of effort, but still the new level we have yet to get. So this third level economic reforms should be achieved, and we should focus upon building the brand India, which we are doing with the help of Make in India and other efforts. But we should focus more and more on building the brand India, right? So with this, we complete the topic of foreign direct investment. Certain questions we will be discussing later on. Thank you very much.